Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Matt Marinoff, Real Estate Recovery Group, and I've got Carmelo Oliveri Development. And Carmelo has been in the real estate game now for many years. Carmelo was a gym teacher. Obviously, for obvious reasons, he got out of that and wanted to get more involved in real estate. And one of his sayings is, Section 8 never late. If you've been following Carmelo online, you can see that he's absolutely a massive force in the industry and influencer in real estate. And you can see by his posts, he's an optimist. Uh, and he absolutely likes to make people laugh, have a good time, and make light of situations. Obviously, you've seen a lot of his posts out there with his more heavier body, and now things have changed and people are making fun of him. But hey, you know what? There's always going to be haters out there, right?
Unfortunately, yeah, that's all
Ab-
good. Haters.
Absolutely. So, with that said, Carmelo and I met many years ago. We've done multiple short sales together. I've made Mel some serious money on some of his buy and holds. We don't have to talk about that today, but we're really talking about Section 8 and why he says it's never late. And Mel, maybe you could tell a little the people that are watching right now a little bit about yourself, because this isn't just New Jersey. This is actually going to be all over the United States, and let people understand. Like, what's your hat that you have on? What is that hat?
Rent money. That's basically the bread and butter of my business, or the real estate, business that I've created over the past 15, 16 years. Now, obviously, when I started off, buying and flipping multifamily houses. For the simple fact is, it's a win-win. If I keep it, I win. If I flip it, I win. So I really hedged against any losses doing that. But obviously, I got more into the Section 8 because for the simple fact that unless the government shuts down, I'm still in business no matter what happens. I was probably more scared when the government shut down the last time than I am in today's market, because that was actually a government shutdown. Now that we have a crisis, the government just printing more money and they're throwing more money at these programs. So there's going to be a lot more subsidies. There's going to be a lot more rental assistance coming up, and obviously that benefits my business greatly. So obviously it's going to work out pretty well for me.
Mel, let's touch base on that. So you're
Yeah.
talking about how the government is basically printing money.
Yeah.
And I don't like to talk about politics, so we're not going to talk about, the stimulus checks that people are getting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about last time you were panicked because of the government shutdown.
Yeah.
What would that have done to you back then? And then we're going to fast forward to 2020.
Well, obviously, usually the Section 8 is probably like 60 days in advance. So if the government shuts down longer than 60 days, there'll be a stall on my payments from the government. So actually, that's the only issue I would have had. If there obviously is a complete government shutdown, then obviously is a complete, stop to the United States of America at that point. So obviously that's not going to happen anytime soon. But it does affect me in a way where, if there was a 90-day or 120-day or 6-month delay with the government shutdown, that would probably stop all the funding from the government to Section 8, public assistance and stuff like that.
So let's fast forward. Let's go to 2020. Let's go to now.
Yeah.
So now, with Section 8, am I wrong? Is there a partial responsibility from the homeowners themselves, the tenants, that they have to contribute? And how does that take into effect right now? What's going on with COVID-19?
Well, what happens is some tenants, the government covers 100% of their rent. Some of them, they got to pay maybe 10, 20% of their rent. What happens is that if a tenant does lose their job or lose their hours at work, they just have to call their caseworker, provide proof that they are they lost that income, additional income, and then Section 8 comes in and makes up the difference. So really, there might be a little delay for me on maybe the $50, $100 that they owe me. But in the grand scheme of things, that's peanuts, obviously, in a large portfolio.
So they are financially obligated to pay that, correct?
The tenants are financially obligated to pay, but if they do lose their hours or lose their job, they just need to contact their caseworker, and then the caseworker will revise the HAP contract that we have with them. So then what happens is the tenant would pay $0, and then the Section 8 would pay 100% if they lose their job. So they again, I'm mitigating my risk by having Section 8 tenants, because if they lose their job, Section 8 picks up the balance.
So, what do you say to people out there? Well, let me ask you a question. You talk about Section 8. Is the bulk of your portfolio, is it Section 8? Do you have any regular tenants?
My properties are in lower income areas, so the bulk of it is Section 8. And some of the properties that are in the better neighborhoods, obviously, they're less Section 8. Some in Bergen County, Hudson County. But the majority of them are in Newark, New Jersey, Essex County. So a lot of it is Section 8, yeah.
So, why Section 8, Mel? What happens in 25, 30 years from now? Are you going to have a problem selling off your portfolio if, for whatever reason, your kids don't want to get involved in the industry? Do you feel like you'll be set up, basically for life as far as keeping it? Would you put a management company in place, or would you just leave it? What would you do? Would you leave the status quo?
No, we could keep. Obviously, we're big enough that we have our own property management in place. So really, it's very little physical work that I need to do. Our team does pretty much everything. Our tenants pay the rent online. So really, it's not much for us to do in the long term. So it's just more of a definitely keeping a legacy properties for the future for sure. Obviously, my debt just keeps decreasing, so I can always leverage it later on for bigger assets and whatnot.
So, what would you say to somebody who's starting out in the industry that might want to just purchase mainstream real estate versus going into, inner city and working on projects that most people won't want to do? Like, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I've been on some of these ride-alongs with you, and I'm going to say ride-along because it is. It's definitely different. It's a different experience. This isn't, Upper Bergen County, New Jersey. You're going into an area where, I don't want to say that, the poverty level is low, but you're working with people and individuals. And I want to give you a shout out because, I've seen a couple of your signs where it says, if you're tired of your landlord or your slumlord. Why do you put, because I see, like, you put a decent amount of money to these projects to make these places nice. What's your thought process behind that? Is it pride of ownership that they're renting a nice place? You're going to want to keep it nice?
Yeah, well, like I said, and for, like you said, Upper Bergen County, and then where I invest, you know what? It's all human beings that live there at the end of the day. So everybody wants a nice place to live. They have a family, they have kids, just like anybody else, no matter what part of the world they're in. So obviously, you provide a quality apartment, you provide quality service. Like I told my crew, I was like, we're in the hospitality business. We're running basically multiple hotels here, and we got to take care of our tenants. So we take care of them, they take care of us. And you know what? I've had literally out of 300 something tenants, I have maybe one or two that maybe might be a little bit late with their rent to date. The ones that pay out of pocket. So again, it's just a matter of providing a service. It doesn't make a difference if I'm in Upper Bergen County, Newark, Irvington, East Orange. These are human beings. They want a quality place to live, and they shouldn't be treated any different. At the end of the day, so they are Section 8. Some of them pay out of pocket. Again, it doesn't make a difference. They just want a good place to live. It doesn't make a difference who you're renting to.
So what made you go after the Section 8 realm? Most investors, some guys prefer condos. Some guys prefer single family houses. Some guys won't go over 3 units. You seem to be a real pioneer. Is it that you're just absolutely insane or super smart?
A little bit of both, I guess. What I really think about it, if I have a condo, right, I start off as an investor. I have a tenant in there, let's just say $1,200 a month, $14,000 a year. And that tenant doesn't pay me for 2 months. Then I got to file eviction. There goes another month and a half. Then I got to do a lockout. There goes almost 6 months out of money on that unit. So did that property really cash flow for me as an investment property? No. Then I got to turn the unit over, so I got to do renovations. On a 3-family, I always tell my investors and my friends or anybody who wants to, learn the business, do minimum 3 units for the simple fact that if 1 unit goes vacant, you still got 2 units to cover your expenses. So again, you're hedging against the losses. So that's why I do usually 3 units, 4 units, 6 units, larger properties, because at the end of the day, if the shit hits the fan with 1 unit, you're still covered in your expenses. If I got a single family condo and, for example, they don't pay my rent, I'm literally out the entire year's profits for one tenant that's ends up not paying the rent for a few months.
So is that the real rule of thumb in your book that if you have a 3 unit, do you ever have a situation where there's more than one vacancy per property?
Very seldomly. If you screen the tenants the proper way, you provide obviously a quality service as a landlord, you're not going to have very few vacancies. We got maybe 2 right now out of 300 units because Section 8 isn't doing inspections, or it's hard to process the paperwork because their offices are closed. We had some cash paying applicants; they didn't work out, so it's just a matter of processing the paperwork right now with Section 8 tenants. But 2 units out of 300 is a very low vacancy rate.
I would say that would maybe even put you in the expert category in the Section 8 field.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody that may or may not want to get involved in Section 8, or somebody that, well, this is a really good example. What if somebody had lost their house to foreclosure and they had to apply for Section 8, or some type of low income housing, uh, program, or whatever it is? When you look at somebody's credit report, and let's say they had a foreclosure on it, but they're paying their bills, you look at them any differently?
No, really, my rule of thumb is if you have 2 years work history, you've never been evicted before, or you're not a habitual person who gets consistently evicted,
Mhm.
obviously, then you tend to be pretty credible and worthy to me. My credit's not that great. I mean, I don't take out a lot of credit, so when you look at my credit score, it sucks. My cars are paid off. I don't have a lot of credit cards, so at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, my credit sucks as an individual, but
Mhm.
really, I'm financially sound. Where same thing, you some of these tenants. They don't have car payments, or they don't have credit cards, but they make $4,000 a month. So those guys are more financially stable than somebody who's probably got a 700 credit score because they're always using their credit cards and whatnot. So the credit system here is bullshit to me, at least.
I think that if you write a book, it should be Section 8, never late, and underneath it, and by the way, my credit sucks.
Exactly.
I think people would read it, just be like, "What the hell is that, man?"
Exactly.
Out of curiosity. So, looking back at it, how many years have you been in real estate? Now, your dad had owned what, a couple of different properties?
Yeah, he rented a few properties. Yeah. So, and then I've pretty much been doing this since I'm like 12 years old, changing toilets and dealing with mortgage reps and whatnot. So, and
Mhm.
he's been in America for over 40 years, still doesn't speak English. I was doing everything.
You were doing you were his translator.
Basically, yeah, exactly.
So it's truly on the job training.
Basically, yeah, exactly, yeah.
So are you the only one in your family that's in real estate?
Yeah, well, my youngest brother is. Yeah, he'd learned the business a little bit, and he owns a few properties also.
Hmm. What's your thought process based on what's going on right now? Somebody who wants to buy a property. I understand the guidelines might be changing or have changed a little bit uh,
Yeah.
since previously. Do you have any experience of what's going on with the guidelines right now?
The guidelines for hard money and investor money is really tightened up, so it's going to be much harder to get hard money loans, private money loans, or whatever the case may be. I know even with FHA and whatnot, they just reduced their guidelines for jumbo loans. So I don't think of a huge difference in that market. It's just a matter of what's going to happen. We really don't know what's going to happen. The only thing, the only certain we know now is uncertainty. So until we know what's going to happen next 4 weeks, 5 weeks with the market and finally get things back and going, we don't know what's going to happen at this point. Um, it can go really good. It can go really bad. Who the hell knows? It's just a matter of waiting it out and see what happens, But if it's a good deal, it's a good deal no matter what happens. If it cash flows, you pick it up. You just got to make sure that you have your exit strategy in place to make sure you pay back your investors or pay back your hard money loans, because you don't want to get stuck, paying 10-12% interest for a long term. That's for sure.
So obviously tomorrow, I'm going to have Dan Tatowski on, and
Yeah.
he's going to be talking about, raising private capital. So that should be a very interesting play on what we're talking about here. So what happens now, like, for Carmelo Oliveri, like if a property pops up and you want to buy it and you want to renovate it, are you buying it the way you normally do? Or are you using like, maybe, untraditional methods?
We always we always leverage our own funds with hard money loans or private money investors.
Mhm.
So that's the same way we're going to do it going forward. At the end of the day, obviously my money's involved, my investors' money's involved. So I always want to make sure that the deal I'm getting is a very sound deal, because we definitely need to exit that property, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months down the road to recoup our investment. So yeah, it's the numbers. It doesn't really make a difference at this point. It's just a matter of finding the good deals. And obviously, a few weeks ago, there was a lot of hard money loans available, 100% rehab loans available, 30-year no asset based loans available, and those completely disappeared the past few weeks. So you're probably gonna see a lot more inventory hit the market, and then basically it goes back to supply and demand. So like I said, we're not gonna know what's gonna happen until this whole stimulus thing plays out, and then hopefully this virus goes away and everybody gets back to work. Because right now the entire economy is basically at zero.
So what would you say to somebody? Because I mean, when did you get into real estate? Like really get into it? What year?
2003. Yeah, I was teaching 2001, 2002, 2003. I bought my first real estate property in Jersey City, and I started buying properties from that point forward. And in 2006, I quit teaching and went into real estate full time.
So it took you 3 years to quit your day job and then go full time with your side job.
Yeah.
Did your wife think you were nuts?
No, she's actually been really supportive of everything I've done. So she's always been fantastic the whole ride. There's times where she had to cover my payroll sometimes because there's we were between maybe 4 or 5 deals that we're doing, and like, oh great, I need the cash. I got a lot of cash tied up in these deals. Can you spot me 30, 40 grand to cover payroll until we cash out refinance? And she's always been very supportive. So when you get into this business, you want to make sure your wife and your significant other is on the same page as you are, because otherwise you're going to divorce court.
100%. So you've been in the business since 2003. I got into the industry in 2005. Obviously, nobody knew who the hell I was. 2007, the market started going bonkers. People knew who I was, started going to some of the classes, whatever. But we didn't really start doing business until, I don't even know, 6 years ago?
Probably, yeah. Maybe a little bit longer.
Something like that. Everything happens for a reason. The projects that we were involved in, that you got short sales on. If you were to look back at it now, right, that process of when we first met, what would you have done any differently? I know what I would do differently, but what would you have done differently with me?
I don't know. Tell you the truth, you've always been pretty receptive to everything I've done, so there's not much to change. Here's a deal, short sale it, leave me alone. Call me when it's done.
Right? No, I got you.
Even meeting you, I always do the short sales myself, and those were a freaking nightmare. You know what I mean? So that was just so you took a load off my shoulders, and obviously you guys are more versed on the legalities of the banks and whatnot than I was. So things went a lot smoother afterwards. So, but overall, everything's been great. I can't complain.
Yeah. So, going forward, seeing how the market is, the first time when the market really went bananas in 2007, 2008, there was a lot of people that came out of nowhere that just like really took this whole thing by storm. Took, the classes that I had offered back then through an education company and really took it to a whole new level. You seem like you're self-taught. Did you learn from anybody? Did anybody say, "Hey, Mel, this is what you should do. This is how you should run your business model," or are you just like a pioneer like me?
No, I learned from obviously the construction. I learned from a friend of mine how to build houses and foundations and framing. So I learned that stuff. But the actual real estate game itself, I just kind of learned from different, jumping from a real estate office to real estate office to real estate office. So I was with Exit Realty, and the broker there was a real estate investor. So I always picked his brain. I worked with Coldwell Banker. They had the top dog program with the commercial real estate investing. So I learned a lot about them, about charts, rates, absorption rates, and stuff like that. So, when I jump from office to office to office, I just learn from all different types of people, and I kind of just put everything together. But obviously, when the market crashed, 2008, 2007, whenever that was, nobody saw that coming. So obviously, just like this one, we just woke up on I always say it happens on a Black Monday or Black Friday.
Yeah.
You never see a Black Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah. So do a lot of people know that that you are a real estate agent? Do a lot of people know that you started you as an investor, but also as a real estate agent, or did they just know you as Mel, Section 8 never late?
I think they know me as a real estate agent. I really don't advertise a lot of it. I do have a real estate office in New Jersey. We have agents that work with our office, and they close deals all the time. So it's just, but I really don't really market it. I work with some investors if they want to list their properties and whatnot. But overall, I'm not really. I don't really focus on that business a lot. Tell you the God's honest truth. I probably should.
So going forward now, again, let's say 5 years from now, what's your perception? What do you think is going to happen in the market over the
Mhm.
next 5 years?
And no one can predict what's going to happen in the next 5 years. You take it day by day, and you always be ready for the downfalls. You know what I mean? So obviously, everything happens in cycles. We had the last crash. Now we have this issue coming up, and until we resolve this issue, we're not going to know what's happening in 5 years. Who the heck knows? The next few weeks will definitely be telling of what's going the next 5 years are going to bring us. That's for sure. People see a V recovery. Some people see a U recovery. Some people see a Z recovery. So no one knows for sure. I just bust people's balls. Ken Beasley, if you're listening on Facebook.
Just a shout out. Did you have any predictions that there was going to be a little bit of a correction in the market at all?
Yeah, definitely. Because when you start seeing a lot of investors coming into the market and easy capital coming into the market, there's always something coming right around the corner.
Mhm.
And then obviously, I was just looking at corporate debt, all these buybacks and all this crazy stuff that's happening in the market. So eventually, and then you see a lot of these stock prices, they're going through the roof, and it's all on projections. Not actual income that these companies are making, Uber, Tesla, and all these other companies. So it's like, shit's gonna hit the fan eventually, especially if you're running all these stock prices on projections. If you watch Shark Tank on Friday nights, a lot of these are like, oh, do you have any profit coming in? No, okay, then you really don't have a good business model. Or do you have a patent? Then you might have something going on. These companies everything's trading on projections, so and it's going up and up. So who the hell knows? So when you start seeing trends like that, it's like, okay, time to lay low and just ride it out a little bit and see what happens.
So based off of our experience doing this now for 15 years, um, getting involved really before the madness started. Now, my prediction, and I've been saying this for 2 years or so, that 2020, 2021, there was definitely going to be a correction based on what was going on in the market. Nobody foresaw what was going to happen now. And because what's happened, this is going to cause major problems with homeowners, major problems with investors. Um, people have a different rule of thumb with the investment properties. You may or may not agree with this, but if an investor takes advantage of the forbearance, um, in my opinion, they're putting themselves in a very bad situation because
Yeah.
if their tenants can't pay, and basically, and again, this is only my opinion, this is nobody else's opinion, that in the event something does happen and they don't pay, and I was talking about this with another investor, I was actually shocked that he actually came up with it, that the process would be that if there's somebody's in there renting and they can't pay rent, and you tell them, "Well, I'm on a forbearance," or "I have a forbearance for 3 months," they're going to look at it as they don't have to pay rent for 3 months or whatever it is, because that's basically what the government's saying.
Yeah.
But let's say you don't accept the forbearance and you keep paying. At the end of the 3 months, if they don't pay, they don't start paying, essentially, you're going to be in a worse situation as far as eviction process with that person being in there because you put yourself underneath the forbearance guidelines.
Yeah.
Now, when your mortgage payment was $2,000 a month, now it's six. Now you're going to $8,000 payment, and this guy's not paying his $1,500 a month share towards the mortgage. You're in a worse situation. So, I mean, I tell people all the time, call your bank, pay your mortgage if you can. Contact your bank, find out, what programs are available. If you're an investor, you own a property, ask your bank. Say, hey, look, if I take this forbearance, what kind of situation am I really going to put myself in with my tenants?
Yeah.
People aren't really thinking like that. They're thinking like, hey, the government's we don't have to pay our mortgage for 3 months. I got people calling me saying, yo, I have to pay my mortgage for 6 months. All right, cool. What about at the end? I don't know. They're telling me they're gonna put it at the end of it.
Hmm.
And then they're calling me back and they're reading the paperwork. They're like, that's not what they said on the telephone.
Yeah.
So, you're gonna see people, there's gonna be a lot of banks that are gonna get fined big money. I've heard fines up to $10,000 for phone calls that got audited for
Wow.
reps
Wow.
that weren't saying the correct stuff on the phone lines, to homeowners themselves. So I think things are going to be a little bit differently with landlords. I do know that we do have something coming out today, either today or tomorrow, that Leah Chambers on my team that we're going to talk about as far as some of the guidelines, with certain things that are changing. Having your pulse on the inside and dealing with people on a daily basis and hearing the latest and greatest sometimes actually comes into better perspective for people like myself that are reaching out, or people that are reaching out to us, not only in Jersey but all over the place.
Yeah.
So, are you doing anything outside of the New Jersey area, or are you just primarily doing New Jersey?
Yeah, no, we're looking at some mobile home parks. We have one under contract. Again, it goes back to affordable housing. I think that's going to be a huge sector in the future. Obviously, as more and more people got to work 2, 3 jobs to make ends meet, and shit like this happens all the time. So yeah, we have one under contract in Indiana right now. Again, once we're gonna obviously hedge against the risk. We want to try to obviously market to like a 55 and older community at that point, for the simple fact they're going to be on a fixed income at 62, 63 and older. Social Security checks are guaranteed. The government doesn't go out of business. We're still in business and we collect our rents. So again, I'm always looking for worst case scenario to, obviously to invest in. If the worst case scenario happens, just like we are today, I'm still covered as an investor, and my investors are covered also. So yeah, that's what we're looking to do. We're definitely getting to bigger units, bigger.
Can you do Section 8 in a mobile park?
I believe you can, yeah. I think, but what it is with a mobile home park, it's a little bit different than apartments, for the simple fact that you're a landlord, you own the land, and you're renting the land, and people park their home there, and then they rent out the space. So it's kind of like a ground lease.
Mhm.
It's a park-owned home where I own the home on the park, then I could probably rent it as an apartment. But then obviously I got to take care of the repairs, the issues that arise as a landlord at that point. So there's different variables and different strategies to make money in that business.
So if somebody was to, let's just say, come to the mobile park, they bring their mobile home, something happens and the mobile home gets repossessed. Are they going to be sleeping on that piece of land in a sleeping bag?
No, if it gets, because they would have to pay us lot rent. So we have a contractor, so you can't just put a tent up. So they would have to either move out or whatever the case may be. But usually what happens with mobile home parks, the banks don't want their mobile home back. You can usually, if the person doesn't pay the lot rent, you're in the eviction process as the mobile home park owner. And if there's a lien on that mobile home, you can contact the bank directly and negotiate a term with them where the park would obviously take over either the payments or own the home outright and buy it, via short sale or whatever the case may be. Because obviously the bank doesn't want to own that asset.
Well, if you ever need a short sale mobile home, I'd love to put that on my resume.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to open it up to questions. I'd love to hear what people might have as far as questions. Don't be shy. Don't be bashful. One thing I could tell you about Carmelo, his bark is worse than actually really who he is. He's not going to bite. So if you have questions, hold on a second. Here's a question. Evictions are actually easier in mobile home because you go through the DMV instead of the courts, more or less. Okay,
States different process. So obviously there's different guidelines, I guess. Yeah. I
understood.
don't know about DMV of the courts, but I guess every state's different.
Hold on, we got another one here. I understand from my remote investor friends that Indiana is a good place to invest right now, in particular Indianapolis. Okay, that's
Sounds
good.
like a plan to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
we do due diligence, and we always check our demographics, population growth, income growth, job and companies in different markets. So yeah, it's definitely a good place to be in.
here we go. It's talking about mobile homes in New Jersey. Where would that be a good place to have them? Would you
Anyway,
invest in Jersey?
huh?
Would you invest in a mobile home park in Jersey?
Yeah, in New Jersey, I would. They're just so expensive right now because obviously, I think there's a bunch in New Jersey, in Moonachie, Lodi. There's a bunch in South Jersey, and a lot of them have waiting lists because obviously the rents in New Jersey are through the roof. So there's a huge demand in New Jersey for them. But obviously, you can't build new mobile home parks in different areas. So New Jersey, I think, is pretty much landlocked. They don't allow because again, you're doing 2, 3, 4 acres, and taxes are only on the land. There's no taxes on the, so you're bringing 15, 30, 50 kids into the school system, and you're paying $15,000 a year in taxes. So it's not financially beneficial for the towns to have them. So there are a lot of land.
Here's another question. I don't understand this one. Does he see another stimulus package coming future this year?
You know what? Like I said, who knows what's going to happen? If 2, 3 weeks from now we're all set to go and this coronavirus is over, then we'll probably get back to work. Obviously, we're probably not going to see 4 or 5% unemployment, 4% unemployment again. We'll probably be a lot higher because I think a lot of employers have learned how to use technology these past few weeks to cut their costs. Also, this is probably a good stress test for a lot of these corporations and their debt on the books to really cut back and be like, okay, you know what? Maybe we need to take it easy and see where we go forward from here. And then again, it can go to shit and things only get worse from here. So we just don't know yet. We just really don't know. Or the corporations take their stimulus money and the virus disappears in a few weeks, and the small people get screwed all over again. So who the hell knows?
Well, do you see any opportunities in real estate now coming up in October?
There's opportunities every year, every month. So you just got to keep looking. That's it. And peak of the market and the lowest of the market is always opportunities. Just a matter of finding them. So when the market's buyer's market, there's 10 opportunities a month. When it's seller's market, it's maybe one opportunity a year. So there's always opportunities.
I think that this is a loaded question because he's asking about October, and I think anybody that's a seasoned investor is going to agree with this. Opportunities arise every single day, whether you jump on it or not. It might not be a great deal. You could put it to a great deal. Most people are like, "Oh, forget it. He's out of his mind. He's not serious," and they walk away from the transaction. I wouldn't necessarily walk away from a transaction. I would say, you know what? Let me put it on hold right now. I'll come back to this guy. Right now, he's telling me to go F myself. In 6 months, he'll be like, "Oh my God, thank God you called me back," and the conversation will be completely different. So it's never, goodbye. It's we'll talk soon.
Exactly.
We already went over this comment here regarding evictions. Nobody has any questions for Carmelo right now. That's it. Any questions at all? I find that hard to believe. Nobody else has questions. Somebody said, "Hi, guys." This is actually a good question. In the process of having your house Section 8 approved, how long a process, Mel? Like if you take over a property, does it make a difference whether the property itself was already previous Section 8? Or if you get the property and let's say you renovate it and you meet the Section 8 guidelines, how long does it usually take to get the property approved Section 8?
There's no approval process. Basically, when you advertise the unit, you just advertise Section 8 okay. And then what happens is the tenant who has a Section 8 paperwork would come to you. Like, I like the apartment. And you do an application just like any other application. And then they have what's called a voucher documents. So basically, it's a Section 8 application that the landlord needs to put together. So you execute the documents, you provide driver's license, EIN numbers, corporate documents, pretty much showing proof that you're the owner of the property. There's a checklist of items you're going to need. And you submit that to the caseworker. You do a background check on the tenant. If they're working, you check there just like any other tenant to make sure they're not habitually evicted. You want to make sure that their income suffices and whatnot if they work. How many people are in the apartment? If the people, the people that are living in the apartment are the same people on the application for Section 8. And then you submit it to the caseworker. They review everything. They process everything. Once it's processed, they send the inspector out, and there's a checklist of items you're going to need to pass the inspection: peepholes, self-closing doors, make sure smoke detectors, all that stuff in place. They'll do the inspection. They pass the inspection, fail the inspection. They fail it. You got to make the repairs that they request. They do a re-inspection. Then you process they process the inspection with the caseworker, and then they issue a HAP contract. Once the HAP contract is issued, then that means basically this is the agreement between the landlord, the tenant, and housing, that they can move into the apartment, and what the rent amounts are, everything is pretty much spelled out in the HAP contract, and then that's it. You move forward from there.
Now, here's another question regarding Section 8. Is Section 8 voucher usually less than the market versus the regular renters? That's been my experience so far.
It depends what market you're in. So, for example, when I started out in Jersey City, Section 8 did pay more than cash payers because the majority of the people in Jersey City was low-income housing at the point. And obviously, not too many people who paid cash can afford to pay $1,400 a month. So Section 8 would pay that amount. Obviously, as gentrification took place and things started changing around, the market rents started going up. So a 3-bedroom is $2,200, $2,300, $2,400, where Section 8 might only pay $1,700. So as the markets change, the amounts change also.
All right. So let me jump to this question, and then we're going to jump back. Let's just go back to mobile parks, Mel, for a second. Mm-hmm. Question is, can you do a 1031 exchange on a mobile park?
Yes, you can. We're doing one now. It's just a matter of what's the real estate worth and what's the chattel worth and what you sold your asset for and whatnot. So it can be done, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So here's somebody who just came into the webinar late. I'm not sure if we talked about this. Can Section 8 in a duplex or quadplexes? What are you putting your hand up for?
There's a fly that went right by my ear.
Oh, I thought you were like, forget about this question.
Oh, no, sorry.
Section 8 duplex, quadplex, or is this only accessible for commercial multifamilies?
No, you can. I have single family properties that are Section 8. So any rental unit could be Section 8. Doesn't make a difference.
So if you have an 8-unit building, a 25-unit building, I mean, I don't know if primarily the whole building would be it, but do you offer Section 8 or low-income housing? Like, I know there's different programs that are out there. Obviously, I don't know those programs.
Yeah. No, it doesn't make a difference. Like I said, you just market to everybody. And then whoever, if the tenant comes in their Section 8, you can't discriminate, obviously. If they're cash, you can't discriminate. You just have to accept who the better applicant is for that apartment. That's all it really boils down to. So I might get somebody who comes and says, I've only worked for 2 months. Well, that's not going to do me any good. I need at least 2 years, steady income. So there's different processes. But at the end of the day, it's just a matter of who's the best applicant for the apartment, really.
Mm-hmm. Mel, you judge me any differently seeing my office look like a freaking train wreck?
No, what is it? Golf clubs in the back?
It's a mess, bro. It's a mess.
You got plenty of time to clean up.
I got plenty of time to clean up. This whole pandemic's gonna come and go, and I'm still gonna have. You can't see it now. Wait, let me show you. You're gonna see that patch on that wall still.
Oh, there you go. I'll send my guys over. We'll paint it for you.
Does anybody else hold on. Here's another comment. Okay, the person just said, okay, thank you. Guys, does anybody have any other questions? Mel's a very hard person to get a hold of with all his extensive time on his hands. He's usually taking naps or between 11 and 3 p.m. now.
It was like 3:30 when I woke up.
Is anything changed during your day? Because I know you used to go in early in the morning and roll out before 11. Mm-hmm. Has anything changed as far as your routine right now with the pandemic?
Yeah, I'm homeschooling the kids for the most, because my wife's working from home, so I'm helping them with doing their homework and their schoolwork. But really, not much has changed. We had some contracts lined up to do construction for a few clients, and a lot of them kind of like say, okay, and we're going to hold off a little bit and see what happens, which is fine. I understand. But my guys are still keeping busy, and The apartments are still going, and so not much really, to tell you the guys. And it's more relaxing, to tell you the truth. Actually feels like time has slowed down a lot. So it just, it always flies by. It's like, oh shit, it's Friday already. Oh, the kids are 6 years old. Oh shit, they're 7 years old. So actually, I kind of like this pace. I feel like I'm in Europe.
So forget this. I went to Europe one time. I think I was in Bormio, and
Mm-hmm.
it's an the upper northern part of Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going out in the morning, and everybody was like chill, and I'm like, rush, rush, rush. And my friend is like, nah, man. He goes, this is a very, very chill. And it
Yeah.
was like 11 o'clock, and like people started flipping signs in their doors saying, you know, we'll be back after lunch. And it was like, and I'm like, dude, did that thing just say he'll be back in 2.5 hours?
Exactly.
What kind of lunch is that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a
Yep.
completely different train of thought over in foreign countries. Obviously, especially in Italy, that was a very fun time.
Yeah.
Um,
We should take a
Mel,
month off in the United States.
what's that?
We should take a month off in the United States every year.
Oh, that'd be great, but that's not
Yeah.
going to happen. Perspective wise, what's changed for you, Mel,
Mhm.
during this whole time? I mean, you're teaching your kids. You were a gym teacher. What did you also teach in school?
Computers, computers and gym I taught. So really, right now we just kind of put into place, line up investors for our deals that are coming up, looking for more deals. Because again, when you're looking at the bigger deals, 40, 50 units, mobile home parks and whatnot, they're really not based off the comparables. They're
Mhm,
really based off the numbers.
mhm,
So if the numbers, those deals are always available, no matter what market you're in. That could be in the peak of the market, and it
mhm.
could be a crappy, apartment building. At the end of the day, it's just a matter of, revamping it and rebuilding it and, cash flowing it. So we're just looking for a lot more of those deals, to tell you the truth, really, at this point, and see what happens, really, so.
Do you think that the average person who's out there right now, who's panicked, similar to 2008, that might not understand, I guess the realm that we're in right now, knowing that there was going to be a little bit of a correction. Now, obviously, there's going to be a little bit more of a bigger hiccup. Um, because it's 2008, or we'll say 2005. We're going back, 10, 15 years. There are newer real estate agents that had jumped into this market. There are newer investors that had jumped into this market. There are new people that hard money companies that popped up, private money people that have popped up. Do you think right now they're essentially shitting the bed because they've never seen this, uh, and that some people are actually going to go out of business during this time?
Yeah, you definitely are going to see a lot of that, because like I mentioned a few times, and I've spoken to a lot of the newbie guys and whatnot. And like I tell everybody, it's like, you start investing in the game. Obviously, the money is a lot more liquid. It's a lot more accessible. And then, well, you'll put your money in, and you'd be like, oh, flip one house. All right, flip one house. I make 50 grand. I'm going to flip two houses. Great. Now you made 100 grand. You're going to take the 100 grand, flip 3, 4 houses. Then when the market takes, a dump like it just did, now all the money you just made in the past year and a half, 2 years is completely gone. And you didn't invest that in cash flowing assets. You didn't invest that in anything else, and basically you're back to square one. So people need to learn, not to over leverage themselves, especially in this business, and especially when the money is really accessible like that. But obviously, everybody likes to learn the hard way. They don't want to, like I always say, and I've said it a million times, smart people learn from their mistakes, and wise people learn from other people's mistakes. So you either learn the smart way or the wise way. So a lot of people are going to learn the smart way this time around, and then next time around they'll know what to do.
All right, so we have two other questions that popped up. But before we pop these questions up, Mel, so for somebody who's never seen this before, that it's in this industry right now, that's either a realtor or investor. I mean, the hard money guys, the private guys, I really can't speak on their part. But as far as for the investor part or the real estate part, what
Yeah.
kind of advice do you have for these people that are panicking right now, that closings were supposed to happen, money was plentiful, and now they've set themselves back 30, 60, 90 days from money coming in? What would you say to people like that are professionals, that this is their bread and butter in the industry?
Yeah. You know what is this like when I started real estate investing, it was 2003. I got my license in 06. when the market started crashing, and I was making a killing. I was one of the top sales guys for NRT. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities out there. So you have basically you're going to shift, right? Just like the book is. You're going to go from your traditional sales to short sales. You're going to go from those sales to foreclosures. So at this point, you want to be the guy to lean on to get the deals and understand the business. There's going to be a lot of real estate agents are going to go out, which is fine because obviously it has to. You can't have everybody doing the business. So the strong are going to survive. You know what I mean? So like I always say, you want to be the cockroach that's living at the end of the apocalypse, and that's the person who's going to live make it through this. So that's who's going to be the game changer. There's mortgage guys that lived through this for 30 years. They've been through so many cycles, and they're still around. And then there's guys that were in the business for only the peaks of the business, and then they disappeared. So again, you got to just shift. What's going to happen? What's happening in the market now? How's that going to affect the buyers and the sellers? And you need to remarket yourself as the go-to person for that. Really, that's all you really need to do. And if you could do that, you'll survive. If you can't, I don't know what to tell you.
So people actually asked me, said, Matt, you were supposed to have your boot camp in May, but now I pushed it off to October, because of what had happened. So there's a lot of new people that are following me. My, I guess, accessibility of people wanting to follow me really jumped up over the last 2 weeks. A lot of requests of people and stuff like that. They said, well, where do I learn? How do I find out what's going on? So, this is my time to try to give back. So every day, 12 o'clock, I'm bringing somebody new on to offer value to show others that there are people that are seasoned investors in this industry that have no problem giving back and talking to people. So let's get back to the questions.
You also got to keep in mind as an investor, there's going to be a lot of cash available out there. There's a lot of people say, okay, you know what? I'm hoarding my cash and I'm going to ride this out. And guess what? If you're the investor that made it through all this, who's going to get the most money? You know what I mean? If I go to my bank and guess what? 60% of the people ask for forbearance, and I made my mortgage payments throughout this entire crisis. Who do you think they're going to lend the most money to? Who's going to get? So at the end of the day, that's what you want to do is you want to get through this, and then at the end result, you're going to fare much better that way.
The problem I think is that people don't understand this forbearance. Unfortunately, I do understand it, and I'm not really going to get into it today, but it is frightening for people that don't understand it. And if you have been late before them saying, hey, we're going to do the forbearance, you don't qualify.
Yep.
If you go into a forbearance thinking where your bank's like, oh, we'll talk about a loan modification at a later date. What if you've already maxed out your modifications prior to this?
Mm-hmm.
You really could put yourself in a very bad situation. So if you could pay your mortgage and you just don't want to pay it because for whatever reason, Larry down the street's not paying it because he doesn't want to pay it. That doesn't exactly. It's not like, hey, you know what, Mel? I'm going to go jump off the GW Bridge today. Hey, well, you know what? I'm actually mentally sound and I've got a great retirement and I love my family. But you know what? Let me jump off the bridge with you.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
That makes sense. All right. So, do the investors claim some of the depreciation?
Yeah. Talk to your accountant about that. Every situation is different, so I can't answer that for you. So
That's actually a great question for somebody's accountant. So if you have an accountant or a CPA, Mel and I have the same accountant. Sometimes it's very hard to get him on the telephone, but he is actually very good. He's probably watching this himself. He's actually going to be coming on one of the lives as well. What do we got here? Have you ever wholesaled a multifamily unit, commercial apartment building complex before, specifically mom and pop owned property?
No, because if it was a really good deal, I like to keep my properties. So if they're really good deals, I keep them. I didn't wholesale all that much, to tell you the truth.
Well, listen, that was a great question. If you have something that you want to wholesale and you don't want it, normally I would say reach out to Mel. But I might be getting ready to start buying properties, guys. So you can reach out to me too. I might want to buy and hold. I'm starting to turn a new leaf. You see all these other guys doing it. I want to have a Ferrari in my storage shed. Now you're the only guy I know who will go out there, take a car that's 10 years old plus, and throw a new transmission in it because you like the car and you don't see any need to go buy a new car. you're
I
very
hate I hate debt.
you're a very practical person, and I for one appreciate you coming on here today and giving your advice. Mel, anything you want to add or offer to anybody that would maybe say somebody that's thinking about getting involved in Section 8. I know that you have a course that you offer people, Real Estate for Dummies. Maybe after we hang up, maybe you could just go back onto the feed and then just put your website on there. So if anybody wants to learn, more about that. But what would your parting words be? Because this is more about education. This
Yeah,
isn't about promoting stuff.
yeah.
This is so what will your parting words be, Mal, in 3 minutes or less?
Yeah, this like I said, patience is a virtue in this business. So you have to wait for the right time, find the right deals. Don't jump into deals that you feel. Do your homework. That's the most important thing. Know what market you're getting into, um, and if you know all that, then you'll do fine. You know what I mean? Just don't. I see people all the time. It's like, oh, wait, I got investors. I got their money lined up, and they just jump on the dumbest deals. And I'm like, you're putting your money at risk, and you're putting the investors' money at risk. And then next thing you know, everybody loses at that point. So the next few weeks are going to definitely be telling of what the future is going to hold. So just wait, ride it out a little bit, and then get into the market. For you though, those of you who got into the market and it's a few, past maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and you're probably going to have some over leveraged assets or over properties that you owe a lot more money than they're worth. And if they're cash flowing, keep them. I've seen it last time. People are like, oh, my house is worth 50% of what it's worth, but it's a 4-family, 6-family building, and they just let it go. I'm like, if it's cash flowing, keep it and just ride it out because eventually it'll turn back around. So I saw that a lot the last market. People just dumped their real estate and just walked away. And I'm like, you know what? Then we just picked it up in a short sale, and now that property we sold it for 3 times what we bought it for back, in 08, 09. So it's a huge. Just gotta wait. Like I said, patience is virtue in this business.
Yeah, but you're also talking about properties that you renovated.
Yeah,
You're not talking about properties that you just sat on, didn't put anything into it. You tend to do the right thing for the tenants
yeah,
and make it more of a home.
of
And
course.
that's why I respect people like yourself in this industry because you don't treat somebody, just as a tenant. You treat them more as a family. You have more of a, although I mean, you've got a lot of doors. So obviously, it's not a small mom and pop organization, but you have it like a mom and pop feel.
Yeah,
I know there's a lot of people that talk behind your back that actually say really nice things about you, Mel,
yeah,
and say that you're a nice person. And I know you probably don't want that out there, but the fact of the matter is, anybody that really knows you, you're a big bark, but you got a soft heart and a
yeah,
very nice personality.
yeah. I try. I try.
You try, you
Yeah,
try.
at the end of the day, it's like I said, all my tenants that like I said, there's over 300, and everyone has my cell phone number. They'll text me. I got tenants be like, Mel, I never met you. When are you gonna come visit me? And I'm like, I can't come out there and visit all these people. But at the end of the day, it's just treating them like family. Like you said, treating them like family. And then they'll stay. I got tenants 10, 15 years. They never move. They'll
Right.
stay there forever. And yeah, obviously the rent's below market or whatever the case may be, but who cares? I mean, it's fine. They're comfortable. Their family's there. I've seen their kids grow up, and then I've seen their kids have kids. So it's crazy. It's pretty cool, to see that.
Here we go. Doug Paul, thank you for your constant support. Absolutely, 100%. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Mel. You guys, anybody who's still on here doesn't know, how to get a hold of Mel. Obviously, you could follow him on social media, Carmelo Oliveri, and then obviously you could private message him if you have any questions about what he offers as far as his program and stuff like that. Guys, the whole purpose of me doing this, I guess, I'm calling it it's a show, it's a streamline. Um, I'm basically trying to stream to let everybody know that, even though the economy right now is slowed down a little bit, people worried about buying properties. We're gonna have some really beautiful, hard, uh, seasoned investors on here and other people in the industry as far as mortgages, hard money, insurance, real estate agents. So there's going to be a lot of great stuff coming on. Well, we kicked it off with Carmelo Oliveri. He's a business associate. He's also a friend. I know that if I need a place to crash in the afternoon and take a nap, I could swing by his place at any time. Mel, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Matt. Take care,
Mel,
man. Have a good one, guys.
you gotta do the finger, Mel. Bring it up. Bring it over. Beautiful. All right, guys. Tomorrow we got Dan Satowski coming on, and he's going to be talking about raising private capital right here, same time. And we're going to be here at 12 o'clock every single day, Monday through Friday, going forward until essentially we run out of gas. I get bored of doing this. Nobody shows up. If you are still watching and viewing this, and you have an idea, concept, or if you're interested in actually coming on and being on the show and talking about something of interest in real estate, please don't hesitate. I'm very excited about this. Contact that toll free number. You can call 24 hours a day as well. We are offering free consultations for anybody to find out what the situations are. Guys, remember, it's truly not a no if you get a restraining order. Have a great day, everybody.